just like a song and brighten my day. Who'd have believed that you were part of a dream? Now it all seems like years away. You know I can't smile without you. I can't smile without you. I can't laugh, I can't sing. I'm finding it hard to do anything, and I feel sad when you're sad. I feel glad when you're glad. If you only knew what I'm going through, I just can't smile without you.
What's happening, people? Welcome back to the Scarfey Spurs Talk Podcast. Spurs lose again in the Premier League, 3-2 defeat against Bournemouth. Romero with some fiery comments on social media, clearly digging out the owners and the board for not the first time in his Spurs career. You know, Frank's already addressed that in his press conference. We've got damning team news today that nobody wanted to hear for Spurs. I mean, awful start to the new year. I was hoping that April Fools come early. That is not the case. I know the year goes quickly, but not that quickly. But a lot to discuss, including the Danes' future in Thomas Frank and Aston Villa moving into that game. If we can even field or 11 for that game based on the way that players are playing and the players that we've got now out injured. I mean, suspended as well. Hopefully no more do get suspended. Of course, we had two the other day that are now both back. But let's introduce tonight's panel on what could be a therapy session. I'm your host, Harry Scarfe. As always, I'm ready for this one this evening, ready to get things off my chest and also listen to other people, what they have to say and what is the dire state of the club at the moment. Chris, thank you very much for joining me. Apologies about the circumstances. I don't think we've got anything to have a go at officials, so you'd be glad to know that. But how are you doing?
Well, yeah, no, I'm good, mate. You stolen my line a little bit there because I was going to say, like, it's nice to be on with you guys, but it reminds me a bit of like when you go to a funeral and you see like family members you haven't seen for 5 years, and you always say, "Oh, it's nice to see you, but I'm sorry it couldn't be in better circumstances," and that's very much what it feels like. And I wish it was April the 1st because, God, I feel better it being a bit nearer the end. We've got half of the season to go. Oh, God, it's just such a trial being a Tottenham fan, isn't it?
Certainly is. I mean, it might be the funeral of Tottenham Hotspur at the moment. Let's just say that. But Chris, thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate it. Thank you. Dustin, thank you very much for joining us from Singapore. Remind people, because of course you joined at a similar time, but what time is it currently in Singapore? I mean, you're committed to Tottenham and this podcast, even in these difficult circumstances, but I'm interested to hear what the time is.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning. This is what they're doing to my life.
That's commitment to talk Tottenham. And a familiar story, unfortunately, with you coming on, talking about a defeat or a result that hasn't gone our way, but appreciate that joining from Singapore. Martin, I believe you're joining us from Slovakia. Thank you very much for coming on. And how have you been doing? Football aside, Spurs aside?
Thank you. Pleasure to be on. Pleasure to see the faces. And yeah, I'm doing great in my personal life. Shame that Tottenham can't lift it that level higher.
Absolutely. If only, it's too good to be true. Yeah, when things do go well, that's the way I feel as a Spurs fan. And I've forgotten what that feels like at the moment. But thank you again for your time. Justin, great to have you back on. Thank you very much for coming on to the podcast. We've got a Justin and a Dustin on tonight. So I'll be very clear of the way that I come across. But Justin, how are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm all good. Thanks for having me again. Obviously, life is good other than Spurs. That's the worst part of it. But we're here to talk about it.
We are. Get things off our chest. Justin, thank you very much for that one. 4 guests joining from 3 different countries. As always, keen to get Spurs fans' views from around the world, wherever you may be listed in terms of country, time, whatever your opinion may be. Get in touch. Let us know how you're feeling right now as a Tottenham fan. If you're listening on YouTube, please do like and subscribe as well if you're new. If you're listening by audio podcast platform, drop us a follow and a 5-star review. And already answering that question that I put to you, I think we know how you're feeling right now as a Spurs fan. Maybe a better way would be to put it, who's at fault right now for our problem? As a fan base, we love to point the blame at someone who you pointing the blame at. Let's get into it then. I want to start with reviewing Bournemouth before we get into all the details of what happened after in the stands. I should have mentioned as well in the intro, players looking to pick fights in the audience. And when I say the club's a mess right now, you only have to look around in the last 24 hours. But In this game, I want to talk about the lineup firstly that Thomas Frank put out. So here is the lineup that follows. It went for Vicario in goal, Spence at left back, Porro at right back, Romero and Van der Ven as a centre-back partnership, as we usually can say. Bentancur and Paulinho in midfield, with Paulinho coming back in the side to replace Archie Gray. Then a three behind Moani of Simmons, again coming back in the side from suspension, Tell and Bergvall, and then Kolo Moani up top. Chris, starting with you, anything that took you by surprise?
No, I think that's probably the team I would have picked, really. That left wing spot's always open for debate. He can play anyone there, although, to be fair, probably justified in the end. Tell had one of his better games. But no, I'm fully behind. I mean, it's a low ebb, isn't it? Because whatever we put out, it all seems to be pretty disastrous. But within the grand scheme of how badly we always play, I am an advocate of Bentancur and Paulinho. I know it's not... well, we're not going to see that for a while, are we now? But anyway, I think that's when we look our most solid generally. So I'm always relieved to see them. But yeah. In terms of the lineup at that stage, I was as moderately hopeful as I could have been, I guess. And then the match started, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, then the drama unfolded, and there's an awful lot to discuss. I mean, injuries as well, and like I said, there are fights to the stand that I didn't even mention there, so I couldn't fit it all into the intro. But honestly, so much to get through, Chris. Thank you very much, Dustin. On the lineup as well, but highlighting that Paulinho comes back in the side rather than Archie Gray. You voiced your concern of Archie Gray potentially playing too many minutes if we're not careful. So were you happy to see Paulinho come into that side? It made sense, didn't it, looking at it from an outside perspective, Dustin?
I think that I'm okay with Archie Gray getting rest and Paulinho getting minutes. I think the problem that we've always had in terms of creativity was having Bentancur and Paulinho both playing at the same time, primarily because of the passing issue. But to be fair, if we have enough creative players up front, whether it's Tell or Moani or other players, then you can balance off having Paulinho there if you have more creative players that they don't have to worry as much about their defensive responsibilities, and it means that they can go up and do more things. That's fine. But I think that whenever you combine Paulinho and Bentancur, then there's a very sideways and backwards everywhere we go kind of vibe to it, which can be a problem.
Yeah, a lot of people will say that. Thank you. And again, a lot of people will agree that. Thank you very much. Martin, asking you about the lineup, Jed Spence coming in at left back rather than Ben Davies. Was this, what you expected? I mean, it would have been strange in a way to ask Ben Davies to play 2 games back to back when we haven't seen him. This is an exaggeration, but for about a year.
No, it wasn't a surprise. I was definitely predicting Jed Spence in the lineup. Like you mentioned, it would have been a sort of surprise, especially if we have a cup game on Saturday, to rest Jed Spence and keep Ben Davies in there. So, no, that position just wasn't a surprise for me.
Martin, thank you very much for your honesty on that one. Justin, if I come to you again on the lineup before we move on from that, we saw Lucas Bergvall kind of play as that right kind of sided player, and also we saw Kolo Muani up top. If I'm honest with you, it didn't surprise me. But if I was picking a team, of course, hindsight, I want to see Richarlison up top and preferably not Bergvall, but with no right winger available, it's quite difficult for Thomas Frank.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's easy for him to do it. It's just comfortable. It's not really being too attacking minded. You're still covering yourself with having another centre mid. Yeah, I wasn't a fan when I saw it, but I wasn't surprised either, to be honest. You got Odegaard there, you could have easily just played him on the wing. It's not that hard to just go attacking. You need to win games. It's that simple. You can't try and be defensive in any type of way at the moment, but I understand why he would do it. So but yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of Bergvall anywhere in the attacking part of the pitch, to be honest. He's too much of a scattergun at the moment. Later on when he matures more into it, yeah, but at the moment, nah, not from his decisions of passing, just what he does. Not to say he's a bad player. I just don't feel like that's his best position anyway.
Totally agree. He's better, isn't he? Back and dictating the game. And I almost see James Maddison as that. Although he's a more mature player and maybe wiser in many ways. Not even to say he's more talented, because he is, but Bergwijn's got a lot of talent, as you know, hopefully to come in the
Mm.
future. And we've seen a lot of it. But I think you're right. And Bergwijn, a lot of pressing, a lot of energy. And realistically, you just can't keep that up. So come the end of the game, he always looks shattered. So I think you're absolutely right to say that. But Justin, sticking with you, it was a perfect start in the game for Tottenham. Literally the dream and ideal start to take pressure off the manager's back. And in particular, Matthias Tell, who got the goal, assisted by Xavi Simons. So what do you make of the goal? Does that sum up how Tell's kind of playing in the last 2 or 3 games?
Yeah, to be honest, he's hungry, so he's going to want to do the extra bit anyway. Plus, he's an all-out attacking player, so his whole bit is he wants to get near the box and he wants to shoot. Obviously, Xavi with the back heel, you just need them type of players to do something different to give the opportunity, and that then excites the other player. He thinks, okay, you've done something, now let me do something. And obviously, yeah, we got a bit of luck with the deflection, but that's what we need. We need players to take shots. We used to have that with Son, Kane, Ali, Ericsson. I could just list players who used to just shoot. And at the moment, we just don't take shots. So I'm always happy, and especially when it's Tell as well, because he's got a lot of potential there. There's a lot of hype around it because of the price, but the prices of players I've never really cared about. It's just about what you got to do on the pitch with your opportunities. And he shows enough that he wants to try and get to the goal instead of just pass the ball backwards, and stick to the regime. So, yeah, no, I was happy to see that.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. I mean, Martin, of course, we know what unfolded after, but it literally couldn't have been a better start, could it? Scoring within 5 minutes, knowing that Bournemouth are vulnerable defensively. And I think a big problem for Bournemouth is they've gone behind in a game. They've been even more open and expansive and offensive than they usually are. And they usually, by the way, are really attacking under Iriola. So there, they've been even weaker at the back. So it felt like Tottenham done the right thing to score first and kind of silence the small crowd of the Vitality. It's very small there. I can never get my head around that. But the perfect start.
Almost. I think that the perfect start would have been a 2-goal lead, because we are just
Very
so
true.
fragile with that 1-goal lead that even when we scored, like, obviously I celebrated, but there was still that emotion in me that we are so under Frank's tenure, or not even under Frank's tenure, but for a long time now, it's we let the gas go and we let teams creep back in. So that 1-goal lead, we were obviously going to at some point in the game get under pressure. So it wasn't a dream start for me. It would have been if we would have doubled it on the lead early on and sort of allowed for a more cruised game, but it just wasn't. Was it? Because we played great for the first opening 15 minutes, and then we just sort of faded out the game in the first half, I thought.
Okay, that's fair to say. Unfortunately, thank you, Dustin. On this first goal, it was assisted by Xavi Simons. I mean, firstly, it's good to have him back, isn't he? After 3 games, good for us. And then to get that assist, I mean, good way to mark your return, I suppose.
Yeah, with the back heel as well. Although I think a lot of it had to do with kind of Tell's desire to, cut in from the wing, make something happen, and take a lowest percentage chance from distance, right? So I think part of it is, I've always felt that Tell's hunger has always been his biggest attribute, in the sense that he's happy to flip the script and try something different, and I feel that he hasn't had the spontaneity coached out of him to an extent where he's willing to try things even if they're not always high percentage chances, and make things happen along the wing, whether it's making a run, taking his man on, or taking a shot from a speculative area.
Okay, thank you very much. Chris, asking you, moving on to the next goal, about the equaliser coming from Evan Nilsson for Bournemouth in the 22nd minute, assisted by Marcus Tavernier. I mean, poor defending from Tottenham in this goal. The ball easily allowed to go into the box, and no real marking of Evan Nilsson, who's Bournemouth striker, by the way. He's the one in the box. Literally, you think the attacker's the one you watch, the centre forward, the number 9, whatever way you want to call it or put it, and he's nowhere near being marked. The closest being Romero, who's really, a long way away from winning that header. So poor for Tottenham, but good goal from Bournemouth, would you say?
Yeah, exactly that. Really, I do find it's a puzzling team. Like, look, I know our baseline metric is just pretty appalling generally, but we have these games where we look pretty solid defensively. And at those moments, there's been 2 or 3 of them during the season where I think, oh, we're actually looking good defensively, and then we'll just go and ship 3 and 4 in the next game and look all over the place. So I find it quite confusing, really. But yeah, it was poor defending. One of the things that I've always maintained, I mean, they're our best players, really, in the team, are probably our centre backs, right? But I've never felt that they play as a partnership. Like if you look back to Toby and Jan and that whole back 4, I felt like they defended as a unit. I never feel that when I watch Spurs. I think we just defend as individuals and kind of hope for the best. And that leads to quite often a lot of gaps and people not getting picked up and stuff like that. So, and it was coming, wasn't it? That wasn't, I think that the tide had slightly begun to turn by then. So it was absolutely no surprise when they equalised, unfortunately. And no surprise, kind of the momentum had shifted and it continued to shift for a little bit after that, didn't it? So, yeah, it was a poor goal. I mean, most goals are preventable, but certainly that one you'd expect better from alleged world-class central defenders just defending across into the box.
You would expect a lot better. Go on,
Chris,
Dustin.
picking up on that, I think that what you bring up is actually very prescient, because it feels like they were good as a partnership in an Ange system, because they had the dynamics that they needed to defend a high line, which is one is aggressive, the other has recovery pace. But it feels like when they are in a more packed defense, or when they're defending deeper, their attributes don't work quite as well. Because
I'd say, just in response to that, my personal view is Romero's obviously a very talented player, but I think he's a player that plays for himself. He doesn't play for the team, and I think we've seen that a lot over the time he's been here.
Yeah, I think that plays a part, because he has this conception of himself as the captain, right? Which is like, sometimes that means he goes up and scores 2 goals, and sometimes it means that he leaves a person and he doesn't close a person down for the 3rd goal in this game, right? So it almost feels like they are playing for what they feel is their personal prestige, as opposed to communicating as a team. When you see a proper centre back partnership, right? They're calling each other out. They're saying my line.
Yeah,
They're telling their fullbacks, who you need to cover. And there was a game that Vertonghen had where he was mic'd up when he was playing, when he had gone back to Belgium, and you heard how much he was telling, communicating to the rest of his back line. And I don't feel that we see that from these centre backs at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Interesting points, both of you. Thank you, Chris and Dustin, for that one. Justin, I'll come to you. I mean, on this goal, I just think, it's a perfect ball, isn't it, from Tavernier? We can focus on Spurs defensively, but I just think it's the perfect ball in the box that just caught Romero, unawares almost.
Yeah, see, this is it's just concentration. I always feel like that's one of the things what our team lacks so much, man. It's just concentration. Just pay attention to your man. Just pay attention to your man. The guy's open. A cross is going to come in. So that's for Spence to be onto him straight away. But I've noticed, I wouldn't say just under this manager, but I've noticed a lot of the times when the ball goes out wide, we are so slow to go to get that guy. And then before you know it, the ball's been put in. And yeah, I just feel like all of the goals were weak. They could have all been stopped. And it's just, again, if it's a team, you're ready to die for each other, and you're going to make sure that you stop these type of things. Obviously, you can't go without conceding a goal. That's obvious. But yeah, no, I just feel like it's just the same thing over and over again. And then I swear the next goal is literally like a carbon copy of the same type of open cross, and people just not dealing with their guy.
100%. You've led me on perfectly to my next point. Justin, thank you very much, because I want to talk about it. And Martin, I'll come to you, because 3rd goal of the game, second going to the home side in Bournemouth, the Cherries. It was scored by Krupi and assisted by Marco Senesi, and he's returned to the team. 36th minute, this goal comes, a good 14 minutes after they got the equaliser. So in this goal, it is very similar, isn't it? It's poor marking from Tottenham, lack in concentration, or lapse in concentration, again, whatever way you want to put it. it's another goal for Bournemouth, and at this point, completely coming from behind to go ahead. And we talked to you earlier, didn't I, about that perfect start, going really now from bad conceding to worse with, being behind.
Definitely. I think you both with Justin summarised that perfectly. Like Justin mentioned, that second goal was literally carbon copy of the first, but even worse because firstly, Semenyo's in that open space for a shot which he sort of mishit. So he's again in around the penalty area, the penalty spots, completely free, unmarked, misses it, and they still they latch onto it, and then they score, a tap in. And if you look at our players, they're all frozen since that ball gets launched in until it goes into the back of net. They're all frozen. So for me, definitely, like Justin said, a lack of concentration for both goals. And suddenly you're going into half time behind, which you don't obviously want to be going, especially where Bournemouth are unable to win for so long. And they can just sense it that, this is a Tottenham team that you can get at and you can sort of get under their skin and, feel sort of mentally above them. So it was just like maybe you said, Harry, the perfect start, but a nightmare finish to the half. So that second goal was horrific defending. And for example, Vicario, who can't really do much about both goals, we can sort of look at him. We've criticised him this season, but I don't think he can do too much about both the goals. But the defending was literally horrific.
Really poor, and it's difficult to give Bournemouth the credit when we defend like that because it's actually a really good ball in the box for both of them, particularly the first. They've done really well, Bournemouth, but we've just failed to do the basics. I don't ask us necessarily to keep both those goals out, but I do ask for like the likes of Romero or whoever it may be, to mark players. I think he's asking a lot. His players are marked more than the goal scorers in the box. It's just really poor. And sometimes, it goes maybe a little bit further than the manager. You've got to take some initiative as a player, whatever you're told. But Dustin, what did you make of this goal? I mean, it feels very similar to the two goals we conceded to like how we score with Pedro Porro, as you said yourself, earlier in the private chat here that if it's Bournemouth scoring these two that we usually score, it just feels weird to be a victim of something we're really good at.
Yeah, so much of our patterns of play are basically Kudus takes the ball on the right wing, he distracts people, Pedro Porro comes deep, Kudus passes back to him, and he's open for a wide cross, and that's how we try to score with Richarlison. But if you're good at scoring that goal, surely you have to know the other team's going to try it, and Tavernier's already done it once. So Tavernier's allowed to cross in that way twice. First with the goal that's scored by Evan Nilsson. And the second time, as Justin rightly points out, after Semenyo misses the shot, and I think Martin pointed out too, after Semenyo misses the shot, the defenders just ball watching and watching Senesi cut it back in when they could be cutting down that angle, they could be marking open men in the box. But it's almost like they're like, no, we want to be the fans now, we want to watch the game. And it's boggles the mind that they concede that cross and not put pressure on Tavernier before he gets that ball in, and to continue to not mark people in the box. So that leads me to question, are we really defensively more solid?
Absolutely, that's the question that will be asked. Before this game, just one goal conceded in 3, but of course now that's changing dramatically to 4 goals conceded in 4 games. Not disastrous, but concede 3 in 1 game. It's frustrating against a side that you've all kind of mentioned there and alluded to it. Bournemouth's form, winless in 11 before this game. Been a good side that have competed better recently against Chelsea, Stamford Bridge get a draw, and Arsenal. They've spirited performance but come away with nothing. But against the bottom line, it's a defeat for Tottenham. Chris, I come to you. Half-time, Bournemouth had a 2-1 lead. What were your thoughts on the first half as a whole? Did Bournemouth deserve their lead at the break?
Actually, as down as I am about it, and I haven't been down about it for a while because most of our performances are just I've just expected. So I'm surprised I'm as down as I am after yesterday. But actually, in isolation, it's one of our better games. Like we actually showed a reasonable amount of attacking intent. So I thought we were a bit harsh to be down at half time. But yeah, it seems like a flip of a coin. Are we going to have a game where suddenly we defend really well, or are we going to have a game like this where we can easily concede 2, 3, 4 goals? And that makes it there's very many reasons why it's a really frustrating watch, but that inconsistency is one of those things at the moment. It doesn't really matter how well you play if you can't defend properly, does it? So, but yeah, and direct answer to your question, I thought we were quite unfortunate, really. I thought it was one of the better performances in terms of showing some intent. I actually went to the Brentford game, by the way, so you can all feel very sorry for me for that. And that's a great example of a game where we didn't even seem to show any will to try and win the game or even attack at times. So I felt much better about the performance in isolation, but obviously being 2-1 down, it isn't really what you want. But that's where we are at the moment. Even when we play well, there's no guarantee that we're not going to be beaten. So it's just the way it is.
Oh, not good. New year, same Tottenham. Let's just put it that way. But on to the second half. Thank you, Chris. 57th minute, Lucas Bergwijn withdrawn through injury. And just to update, we'll get into it a little bit later in terms of the general team news delivered by Thomas Frank today in his press conference before the Villa game in the FA Cup third round. But Bergwijn is a doubt. I will reveal that has been said. And he made way in this game through injury. Wilson Odobert replacing him 57th minute. And then, if we move on again as well and progress to that second half, we got Porro, who was booked in the 60th minute, and Rando Colomwani in the 61st. Of course, Bournemouth make their changes throughout, but 67th minute, Richarlison coming on for Rando Colomwani. So I want to mention him very, very briefly. Dustin, I come to you. What have you made of Colomwani in the Spurs shirt at the moment? Have you been uninspired? Because he looked, if I be honest with you, hopeless up top. And of course, we know that we lack the quality and creativity, but I just felt like he was never going to score in this game.
Yeah, I think that early on it was easy to make the excuse that he, hadn't been playing and needed to get up to speed. And he did show some initial signs of having like good interplay, one-touch passes and everything. But it's gotten to the point where you've been getting the minutes, and while some of it has been on the left wing, which is not his preferred position, he has been getting minutes in a central position. And if you can't beat Richarlison, who's your competition for minutes, then there are some problems, and maybe there's a reason that you're getting loaned out. So it was not a good performance from him. I thought Tell had a good performance. I was a bit disturbed that Frank thinks Odobert and Bergwijn are like for like, because they're very, very different players, and that was very.
He doesn't. Come on, he was saying quite clearly in that it was a like for like substitution because Kudus was playing in the 10 in the game, right? We can't seriously think a manager who's been a manager as long as him can't see the technical difference between the two players.
Yeah, that was the part that was very confusing for me, because that quote was, it was mind-boggling. But yeah, I think that Odobert is a potential to try in the 10, because not just on the wing, and depending if we need creativity in the 10 and if we have players that are out, that is a possible position for him, because I've just noticed over the last few games that whenever he's on, he does take his man on, he does try to make things happen. It doesn't always come off sometimes because his teammates aren't making the runs or getting in the right positions, but he has been one of the players that has provided a spark whenever he's been on.
That's true. Thank you very much. 73rd minute, Mickey van der Ven, what an incredible solo run, and he thought he had a penalty given by the on-field referee, only to be later overturned by VAR. I wonder who I'm going to ask this one. I'm going to go, of course, to ex-referee on the panel in Chris. The right decision in the end. At the time, you think, definite penalty, but then you see it back and go, I love you, Mickey, but what are you doing there?
Yeah, I didn't think it was a penalty to start with, but that's me looking at it from having refereed 1,000 games, and you kind of have an instinct based on body shape and stuff. But the one thing I will say, from what we saw, the replay, I think it's pretty clear, right? The defender makes no action, and Van der Ven comes careering across into him. So it's what we call initiated contact by the attacker, Van der Ven. The only thing that was someone asked me about, I've got to kind of concede that I can't be firm on this. That first challenge that comes in that sort of knocks his stride off, I think from the angle you see, it doesn't really look like there's any contact. but someone else was saying that from a different angle, they thought there was contact there. And that sometimes happens, right? Different angles show different things. So maybe if we'd seen a different angle, that very first challenge, there might have been more in it. But based on the only angle that I saw, there's no way you're giving a penalty for it. And to be clear, he gave a penalty for the second defender, right? The one that Van der Ven crashed into. And there's absolutely no way that he's committed an offence. But there's a small chance that first guy might have done, but from the angle that I saw, I don't think you can say he did. But different angles show different things. I was a little surprised that there wasn't another angle of it. But yeah, didn't look like a penalty. And the second VAR we're looking at, and they look at every penalty, right? So I was 100% sure it would be overruled.
100%.
Chris, do you mind if I ask you a slight tangent question about VAR?
Go for it. I love VAR, mate. Go for it.
No, I think like the question I have is that I've almost never seen VAR like contradict a referee and a referee not take the contradiction. Is there almost like an obligation, or do you feel that structurally it's a thing where if you're told to go to the monitor, it's serious enough that we think you should change your decision, and there's like almost an obligation, because we've heard like what was it? One of the former PGO MLO referees say that it's my mate and I got to trust his judgment and everything. Do you feel that happens, or do you feel that they'll almost always take what the VAR says to heart just because they don't call you over to the monitor for nothing?
They do exactly that. So you just nailed it with the last point. I don't think there's anything about he's my mate, because ultimately there's nothing like sometimes at the end of when it comes to refereeing, the narrative changes every single week depending on what suits that fan's agenda at the time. So one week it's they won't overrule because they're mates, and the next week it's they want to be the center of attention, they overrule for everything. I'm like, which one is it? And the actual answer is it's neither of those. But in to your point, you're absolutely correct in what you said about I think it's happened about 4 or 5 times in how long's VAR been in now? 6 or 7 years. One of them was a Spurs game where the referee's gone over and not changed their mind. The reason why it's so rare is just the way it's set up at the moment. So VAR protocol is that they're only allowed to send the referee to the monitor if their opinion is that the referee has definitely made a very clear and obvious error. So by virtue of the fact he's going to the monitor, he's going basically saying, show me why I'm wrong. It's not let me have a second judge of it. He's already tainted by the fact that someone else, another Premier League ref or whoever's on VAR, is of the opinion that he's incorrect. He knows that before he's even seen the replay. So it's with the way the protocol is, it is correct that the vast majority should just go with the VAR decision. I know that's really frustrating sometimes, but one thing fans forget is that the very first season VAR came in the Premier League, that didn't happen. And the referees just took the VAR decision and said, right, VAR has said this. And the fans went mental at that as well. And they're like, well, why? It should be down to the guy on the field. Why is it a guy? So that's why then the whole game changed after one season and said, right, they've got to go and make the final decision themselves. Now they do that. There's an equal number of fans who don't like that either. And that's kind of the nature of refereeing. It's sort of damned whatever way it goes. But people forget the first season that didn't happen and they just took the decision. But people hated that as well. So, but yeah, the very succinct answer, which I didn't give, is they're basically being told that they're incorrect going over in the first place.
Can I just jump in really quickly and ask Chris about the Newcastle Tottenham game where the referee got sent to the monitor about the Bentancur incident? And, as fans, when you look at that, it just doesn't look like a penalty. And I know that it's been slowed down and it looks much worse, but like in the real time when it actually happened, it does look like Bentancur is just not making a foul. So it's certain decisions that get the fans sort of started with the VAR, if that makes sense as well.
I think it's because he wasn't looking, right? I think that there's certain triggers where you're like, because you're not looking, it means that you only care about the man, and therefore, you can't say that you're going for the ball.
Yes. I get that completely, but it does make sense why certain fans feel anger towards such decisions where the referee should sort of see it as also perspective that, maybe that isn't intentional at all. Or, I get that.
Well, there's a couple of points on that one. I thought that might have been a contender for the referee sticking with his original decision when it was happening. But again, going back to that point I just made, he's being told to go over because he's being told you've made a howler here. I'm 50-50 on I think you can justify, and this is what fans don't always appreciate. I think you can argue either way for that. I think you can argue why it is a penalty. I think you can argue why it's not. And I think both decisions could be justified in a sense, because football's not binary. It's not definitively one thing or the other. There's a degree of how much holding is going on there. Where I'd be a bit more critical of Bentancur is a couple of things. Before this season started, the PGMO went into every club and said, these are some of the things we're going to be focusing on this season. And one of them was, if you're not looking when a corner comes in, we're going to be trying to penalise that. So they know that before the season. But even worse than that, you watch the footage back, the referee stops the corner being taken, goes over to Bentancur. And who was it? Was it? I can't remember who it was now. Was it Dan Burn? I can't remember. It was a big player. Anyway.
It was Burn.
Burn. And he talks to both of them. And basically he's saying there, he said, you can't not look at the ball. You've got to be looking at the ball when it comes across. 5 seconds later, the ball comes across. Bentancur's not looking at the ball. So
but the funny thing is, before that, Burn has him in like a DDT position, holding his head in a way where he can't possibly look at the ball as well.
I think that's a generous interpretation, because I don't think he grabs his head at all in any way. I think it does end up there. I didn't think there was enough, personally, for me. That's just my opinion, to give a penalty. But I would say you have to be a special kind of stupid when the referee has just said to you, don't not look at the ball. Because when the referee singled you out before the corner as well, you know, without a shadow of a doubt, that the referee's sole focus is on you. So he knows everyone's looking at him. So to then go and do it anyway, I was flabbergasted with the stupidity of Bentancur. But the ref didn't give it. And it slightly then depends on what the referee said to VAR. If he said, I've seen it all, I don't think there's enough. I didn't think it was clear and obvious enough to get involved. But this is where the laws are subjective. And it's about, very quickly, because I know Harry will want to move on, like at holding, if you want complete consistency, then that is a holding offence and has to be a penalty, right? But I think if we all said, if that happens in the area, no one wants a penalty for that. But it is holding. Equally, if it's that and you get dragged to the floor, it's really clear. So at the one end, if it's not a penalty, the other end it is. Somewhere in the middle, I will think it's enough for a penalty. You will think it's different. So there is a tolerance, and that's just the subjectivity of the laws. And you will always get inconsistencies. It's inevitable because of the way the laws are written. So I didn't think it was a penalty. The guy who's watching VAR thought there was enough there. I think you could argue either way. But what you can't argue is that it was one of the most stupid bits. And he's been coached to do that, by the way. Blows my mind that they're coached like that these days, because it's such an obvious thing that referees are looking for. Anyway, we've segued into Newcastle, which I'm sure Harry wasn't wanted.
No, but it's interesting to hear a discussion there. Thank you very much. But it's fair to say at the moment, Tottenham's problem is not down to officials, but it's definitely in terms of what's going on the pitch, maybe off the pitch as well, but not with refereeing. But let's get back to it. Thank you for the discussion there. 75th minute, Mickey van der Ven was booked, we said there. Then 78th minute, goal from João Palhinha, and just saying goal goes very lightly about it. Justin, I come to you. I mean, an amazing acrobatic overhead kick from Palhinha. Not the first time he's done it, and hopefully not the last either.
Yeah, see, that's one thing about Paulinho. He's not going to give you what you want when it comes to creativity on the ball, but I'm not expecting that. I'm just expecting hard tackles and someone going to go all out to try and get a goal for us. And he does it time and time again. And when I rewatched it and I watched him give him the little barge and then he goes for the bicycle kick, I just thought the audacity of this defensive mid who's like 30 plus to even try and do this. I'm like, where's the other players trying this? Where are the other players trying with this passion to do anything possible to get a goal? And that's one thing I do love about Pal. But yeah, man, what can you say, man? I feel like they're the only ways we gotta go and get a goal from a set piece, something crazy, or our own goal. Because when it comes to this, normally just a simple chance, one-on-one with the keeper. I don't even remember the last time I've even seen that. So yeah, man, well done to Pal. Great strike. And yeah, man, it's a shame we didn't go on and do the job.
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate that. I agree with you. Martin, on this goal, I mean, a lot of credit has to go with the goal scorer, doesn't it? In Yao Polinia, because so little time to react. And this is what footballers are paid for. And people often moan about that. But he reacts super quickly in the tight area. The chance is about to go, and boom, he's thought over his head. And just if you see it back in either quick, maybe play quicker than usual, but in particular, just see it in normal time, it's fantastic.
It's a great finish, but what we need to praise as well is just before he actually attempts the bicycle kick, he does fantastically against Jimenez to actually get to the ball. So he battled for it to even have a chance of a bicycle kick, and it's his second one this season, isn't it? Because he scored one against Doncaster Rovers, and it's our fourth one this season if we can count Richarlison and Romero. So we seem to be really dangerous from set pieces. That needs to be said. So yeah, fair play to Palini. I think that we looked very dangerous from set pieces. I thought we could have scored 2 goals more because Richarlison hit the post and also Van der Ven had a massive opportunity. So one thing I will praise Frank for is we've certainly improved from set pieces.
Definitely have.
And what I've noticed is that it's always Romero at the far post hitting it back into danger.
Yes. The last 2 games I've seen it as well, and this game, last game against Bournemouth was very obvious, wasn't it? That he starts in the centre circle and he quickly drifts off, and for some reason the Bournemouth just couldn't deal with it. We attempted it I think 3 times that game, and it pulled off all 3 times. So yeah, it looks very dangerous. But I think that we will switch it up, won't we?
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that one. You're right. And we score a lot of bicycle kicks, and we also score a lot from set pieces. So there we go. Look at the positives. Always, lots of negatives that we can focus on, and people love negatives. I think they thrive off it, if I'm honest with you. So it's always good to highlight those positives as well. But Dustin, it felt this goal was coming. I mean, a lot of people go here and go, oh, it took an acrobatic kick for Spurs to score. I don't think that at all. I think great goal for Paulinho. Credit to you, but I thought the goal was coming either way, whether it was a tap in or an own goal. Spurs were going to score. It was just a matter of time.
Yeah, I did notice that there were a number of occasions that in my notes, right, where we were like putting them under the cosh. How much of it is them giving up possession and deciding to take it play more conservatively in the second half? I don't know, but I would say that we definitely had a lot more possession, but once we scored, the field tilt completely shifted again, where they went back to having a lot more possession, creating a lot more, and then Bentancur got injured. We put Gray on, so I think that we had a number of things that changed after that goal. I think I have in my notes that Tel had a run going through the center that was good, but Richarlison had terrible touches and terrible passes like at 89 minutes and 90 minutes, where a lot of moves broke down when they got to him. So I think while he's a person that he's our top scorer this season, but when it comes to being involved with build up, that's where his skill set is limited.
Again, I think that's very fair to say. I think a very good point there with Paulinho, etc. Thank you very, very much. And the 86th minute, Archie Gray come on for Rodrigo Bentancur, who come off injured. We get into it later with the team news when we move on to Aston Villa. It's not good news, let's just say, about Rodrigo Bentancur. We'll leave that discussion a little bit later so we can focus on this Bournemouth game. But unfortunately for Tottenham, well, firstly, there was 9 minutes of additional time, so 9 minutes of stoppage time. And in the 5th minute of that, so the 95th minute, was the final goal of the game, the 5th one as well. And it didn't go to Tottenham as we hoped. It went to Bournemouth. And we talk about lacking concentration, doing the basics in football. And I'd argue when you get to stoppage time, one of them is being able to see out a game, whether it be a draw or a win, doing the basics, and closing down. And just Semenya could have taken, no joke, probably another 6 touches and still managed to get the shot away. And that's what really concerns me. But it was Semenya on what is his final game, yet to be confirmed, I think. But we know it's going to be for sure his last game, or was his last game, I should say, for Bournemouth. Getting that goal assisted by David Brooks. Chris, I saw you shake your head there. It's hugely frustrating, isn't it? To throw away. I mean, a draw would have been frustrating because we're in a position where we were winning, but that's got to be where I think the likes of Mourinho said it, Conte said it, where sometimes you just got to take a draw. You've got to be clever, and you've got to be, sometimes a horrible team that grind out the result, and Tottenham unable to do that.
Yeah, I think Mourinho used words that probably
I
might
know.
get you
It just comes
monetized.
to my head, but I couldn't think of a word to use instead.
Yeah, runts, I think was the word. Why I was shaking my head, to be honest, is it's just all so predictable. It's got to the point where we laugh about the Dr. Tottenham thing, and just everybody was saying the same thing. Semenyo's last game, he's going to turn up and score against us, and it's beyond. I just don't have the words for it. Like this Dr. Tottenham thing, I think it might get taught in science lessons in school now, because it's just like established fact, isn't it? It's not just a silly theory. It happens. It's like, and the regularity of it, it's just so depressing. So, I mean, the other added thing this season is we've conceded a lot of goals like that coming from outside the box. We don't seem to be closing down particularly well. But yeah, that's why I was shaking my head. It was just the utter predictability of it all. You either laugh or you cry, and I don't know. I'm at the moment I'm slightly flipping between the two. I'm not sure which one's the best coping strategy, but yeah, that's why I'm shaking my head. It's just, I don't know why I didn't bet on it. It was just so predictable that Semenyo was going to score in that game. Is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Dustin, do you agree with that? Semenyo, no real. It's harsh to say no real impact on the game, but he wasn't involved heavily, let's just say, in the game. And it always felt before a ball was kicked, it was a matter of rather when rather than if that Semenya makes his mark on this game and ends his Bournemouth career on a high and punishes Spurs, Dr. Tottenham, as Chris will say. But to do it in the 95th minute was cruel but predictable. Would that be fair to say?
Well, Semenyo's an Arsenal fan that snubbed us in the transfer window, so we're doing the Eze playbook all over again, right? Like, you're an Arsenal fan, you don't want to come to us, you're going to score against us, we'll give you your fairy tale ending. Eze scored a hat-trick against us, hasn't played the rest of the season, right? So we exist not just as a doctor, but as a screenwriter for the hopes and dreams of other clubs and players, honestly.
Sad, but it's so true.
The shot outside the shot outside from goal is the thing that I pointed out months ago, right? Where I was talking about how Frank thinks shots from outside are low percentage shots, so he doesn't take them, and it seems his defenders don't really care about blocking them. So there's a slide over there, which is that shot of where Richarlison is. If you can put it up, Harry. I've got a slide for that. Where Richarlison is and where Romero is, our captain, just hands behind his back, standing like a statue when he should be going out to block that. Yeah, okay. So I think that's the issue, right? If you are coached that shots from outside are low percentage chances, do I really want to bust the gut to block that?
That's the problem. You're lacking that kind of urgency. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I play football at an extremely low level and just for fun, I mean, for me, the most important things were little things like that final kind of few minutes of a game, making sure you don't let whatever you have slip and holding on to something or fighting for something. Those final stages, like with an opening of a game as well, I always think start good, end good. Make sure you're strong at set pieces, offensively and defensively, and just apart from the set pieces, which we are good at both ways, Tottenham just do not do the basics. They do not do the basics at all. Just
on that, Harry, I've got a bit of a theory, which is that, it's more fact than theory, I think, but these players are just used to losing, right? We've lost solidly for most of the last 2.5 years on a regular basis. So when that happens, it's inevitable that it comes into your psyche. Like, you're not going to care as much about doing exactly what you said, all that extra effort just to close down. And another amazing away game I went to recently was when we lost at Forest. And just watching the reactions of the players when we concede yet another goal, they're immune to the pain of losing. Whereas Arsenal, for example, when they played Wolves and they conceded that stoppage time equaliser, that really matters because they're fighting for something. They want to win the league. Every goal, every point dropped is important. For us, it's just another goal. It's just another defeat. And that is the culture of our squad, which is deeply worrying.
Not good at all. Frustrating. And it did end 3-2 to Bournemouth, which means Tottenham 14th now in the table. Bournemouth move within a point behind Tottenham and end their winless run of 11 games, and Tottenham somehow with still a positive 3 XG. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but 13, 14 points now from the drop zone. I should be talking about how far away from the top 6 I can do that, but feel like we're looking behind at the moment because we are slipping down the table. But for those that do prefer to look further up, we're 3 points away from 10th. And we are 6 points away from 5th. So not completely disastrous, but any Tottenham manager that, of course, is in 14th place is going to come under the firing line, no doubt. But we'll get on to Thomas Frank's future. I want to get the overall thoughts from all of my panel on this game. Starting with you, Justin. What were your thoughts after full time? How do you feel? We'll get on to Frank in a bit, but do you think we deserve something from the game?
Not really, to be honest. I was working during the game live, so I didn't get to watch it. So I foolishly watched it before the podcast. Yeah, I just we tried a bit more attacking wise, but other than that, it's just the same old boring football. It's the same old style, the same old lack of effort. So I just feel like you're not trying to win. So do you ever deserve to win? Cool, certain players might have played a bit better than others, but deep down, I wasn't surprised. Like I had no idea how the last goal went in, but I knew how it went in. If you get what I'm saying, like I knew it. I knew it was gonna be just this. I'm bored. I'm actually bored of watching Tottenham. It's how we play, and every game I feel is the same thing at the moment. And that game again, yeah, we tried a little bit harder, maybe by taking a couple more shots, a couple more chances from set pieces, looked a bit better. But deep down, no, I wouldn't really say that we look like the team who's trying to bust a gut to actually win. I wouldn't really say that personally. So yeah, I'm just numb to it at the moment, to be honest. So yeah, no, I don't feel like we deserved it, but we definitely did try a bit harder than normal.
Okay, thank you very much. Do appreciate that. Martin, what are your overall thoughts on this game? Because you can look at how we play, but ultimately it is another defeat for Tottenham, which is not good. And we'll get on to some of the scenes we saw post-match, but it's the results that are not going Tottenham's way. Haven't been losing that many, really, for the last 2 or 3. There've been a few draws in there is the point, but we just struggle to get a result at the moment. And draw would have been all right in the end, but we couldn't get it.
Definitely. I'd say my view is slightly different to Justin's. I think that we did deserve a point, but in the grand scheme of things, if you look at the last 3 games, that would have meant that we have 3 points from 9, which sort of reflects, as Justin said, our playing style. That it's very boring to watch. It just doesn't have the elements of what Spurs fans, what we want to see reflected on the field. So I would have been, even if it ended 2-2, disappointed with the result, because you take in the context of Bournemouth not winning in 11 games in a row. You take in the context of actually they were there for the taking if we would have maybe controlled the first half better. So I would have been disappointed with the 2-2 draw, but I believe that we deserved the draw, and it was kind of cruel to concede the last minute goal. But again, like Dustin showed with the image, that there was just no urgency to close down Semenyo. So who would have been the more likely team to win? It would have definitely been Bournemouth. So it's very disappointing, and Frank's going to get under huge pressure now, because ultimately he's lost a lot of players in this game. So looking forward, he's mentioned a lot of times the fact that we finished 17th last season, but ultimately he could just be sort of dragging himself into that conversation.
Interesting one to discuss there. Thank you very much. Dustin, what are your thoughts post-match? I mean, Thomas Frank looked drained at the end. Do you feel drained right now as a Spurs fan?
Not as drained as that Arsenal Cup. Look, it's tiring. It's tiring because we don't have... Look, even when we were losing badly last season, and, there were times that it was really dire, right? 17th in the table doesn't lie. But we were having a go. we would be playing with Spence and Spence as centre back, Spence and Gray as centre backs, because that were the only fit centre backs we had. But we had the kids come on and we had a go. Even if you lose, today has to do, there's something to hold on to, even if you don't get the result. At this point, we're going ahead in games, and they were trying to shut up shop and hold on to leads, which we either concede for a draw or loss in the end. And there's really nothing much to hold on to if you don't even have the result. I felt this way a lot during Mourinho's tenure, where the football was dire, and it's like serial winner, lay down and tolerate that for the result. If you don't get the result, then you don't have anything else that you're holding on to. So I think that's what's the most draining, because I remember at times where we talk about count down 5 days till I see Spurs play again, and it feels now that we're going, do you want my season ticket? I don't really feel like watching the game. Maybe I'll just scroll the updates. It doesn't feel like you're raring to watch Spurs now. And that, I think, is the saddest part, especially when you have fans that go home and away, spend the most expensive season tickets in the world, and they don't want to watch it.
100%. Okay, thank you very much. And Chris, how are you feeling post-match?
Yeah, look, in isolation, actually, it was one of our better performances. But yeah, I just echo everything everyone else has said. Really, I just tired, seen it all before, just drained by it all. Really, I think I know we're going to lead into Thomas Frank, so this might be a slight segue, but I was trying to work out why I was more disappointed with this, because we actually played better, whereas we've been playing appallingly, and I've kind of gone, yeah, I don't expect any different. I think I'm more down about it because I think that we are getting close to the end for Thomas Frank here. Now, I'm neutral on that, really, but why it gets me down a little bit, the prospect of him being sacked, is I think it's just like a sleight of hand, like a magician's trick in a way of, we'll just change the manager and then we can all worry about what's the new manager going to do. It's just taking the focus away from what the big issues are at the club, in my opinion. So I think it's like potentially using a sticking plaster when you need major surgery. So I'm sure might be a segue for you into Romero comments and Thomas Frank generally. But that was my feeling at the end. I was quite down, and I think it's just because been here before, seen it all before. Let's just do it again. Let's just bring on the next guy.
Yeah, I think, Chris, you say that perfectly. That I think you mentioned you're not sure why we're so drained. I think it's because we know what's coming next.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's the thing, and it's a vicious cycle, of course, however you feel about Thomas Frank. And I think this from Lucas Bergvall, when he did come off injured, really sums up the feeling right now as Spurs fans, hence why I've shown it on screen. So much to discuss. I'm just quickly deciding myself what to go through first. I think what I will bring up is the post-match scenes before we get on to Romero comments and the horrendous, and I literally mean horrendous, team news. So some uncomfortable scenes in the away end, if I'm honest with you. Yeah, Mickey van der Ven was the first to go over. You can see there, those listening live on YouTube, to the away support. Very uncomfortable. A lot of players going over, clearly upset with what had been said. So Chris, I'll start with you. It just really summed up, didn't it, the massive disconnect right now between the fans in the stand, of course at home as well, but in particular those match-going fans away and home. Big support. In this case, going to the Vitality, it's a decent journey. It just feels like right now there's no connection at all between the players and the fans.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think they like us particularly as a fan base. I'm not sure I particularly blame them. We are browbeaten by years, depending on your age. And I'm the senior guy here, I think. Some of us have had this for a very long time. And I guess the average age of the away fans will be higher, right? Because these are the guys who've got many years of loyalty points. So they're probably more my age and above. Seen it all before. So that our patience as a fan base is very thin. At times, I don't think the players helped themselves. I don't think Van der Ven helped himself. He came over looking for an argument. I don't know what was said to him, and I'm sure it was probably something unacceptable and vile. But he's better off walking away, really. But this happened last year at Bournemouth. Ange got in a massive fight. Yeah, so what I think Martin just said, we've seen this all before. We know what's about to happen. When Ange started getting into fights with the fans and stuff, you kind of know where this is all going. And But I thought it just looked as a snapshot to sum Tottenham up right now. Seeing our first team players over arguing with our fans that's where we are. We are a massively divided club with rifts. We're not on the same page. We don't like the players. The players don't like us. We don't like the management. They probably don't like us. There's very little good at Tottenham right now.
Not nice at all. Thank you. Dustin, do you have anything to add about this situation? Because it started with Van der Ven, who have got the majority of the pictures of here, but yeah, Polini are going over, some peacemakers in there, Vicario going over as well. When we talk about peacemakers, it's unlikely that he is usually that, but he was the peacemaker in this case. And a lot of players were upset by what had been said. So my guess, I want to know your thoughts, is that one or two, probably one fan that said something disgusting and nasty, because all those players have gone over to this, same area. So you assume the selected individual. What was really telling is that Porro went over as well, but they were all clapping, the majority of them, apart from Van der Ven, were clapping the rest of the fans. So they're clearly, appreciative of the way support and, making sure they have the backing. But that one individual clearly, cracked a few nerves and said something uncomfortable that probably, was nasty.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is every fan base has an element of that, right? So we've had hands racially abused on before. So, let's not be under any illusions that everyone's angels here. We do have to recognize the fans are right to be frustrated. Although there are, there's an element of decorum there in ways you voice out your frustration, whether it's productive or not, whether it's abusive or not. And I don't think that the players would have reacted this way if it was, just you're playing badly. It sounds more like, I'm insulting your person or something like that. As for the players reacting to fans, I think there's a level of maturity that they need to have there. They need to understand why fans are upset. And even if fans are getting personal, the upset is not personal. The upset is, in Chris's case, I think we may be of a similar vintage, but it's decades of hurt, decades of disappointment, from this club that continues to flatter to deceive and has a hierarchy that continues to underinvest in what we need to do to match our ambitions. And as a result, fans are frustrated. Fans want something to change, but the person that they can shout at are the players and the managers, and they take the brunt of it. So that's the unfortunate part. But the players also need to have a bit of maturity, and I think this is where not having Son there makes a difference, because I feel like he would have been in the dressing room making them understand what all this means to the fans, and about how upset they would be about these performances. And I know last season a lot of fans like, oh, I don't need to see your crying face and everything, but he had that face because it mattered. And I don't know if we have a captain in that dressing room now that actually gives his teammates a rocket about how the performances need to better match what these fans are paying all this money for.
Okay, thank you very much. I do want to move into some interesting stuff that went on, let's just say. So before we get on to the cup incident, let's just say, with Thomas Frank, I want to talk about Romero's comments on social media, which are interesting. I mean, I'm going to read it out for those who can't see it there because it is minuscule. It says, apologies to all fans of who follow us everywhere, who are always there and will continue to be. We're responsible. There's no doubt about that. I am the first, but we'll keep facing up to it and keep trying to turn the situation around for ourselves and for the club. Here's where it gets interesting. At times like this, it shouldn't be other people coming out to speak, but they don't. As there's been happening for several years now, they only show up when things are going well. We'll stay here, working, sticking together, and giving our all to turn things around, especially at times like this. Keep quiet, working hard, and moving forward. All together is part of football. All together, it will be easier. and tagged Spurs official. This is an Instagram post from Cuti Romero that has been watered down. It's been edited. Let's just say the biggest part that's been removed is the part that they always lie. It was in there to start with. It was changed a couple of times to a few lies to there's no lies at all because it's been completely removed. But it was a lot stronger. That is the watered down version. I think even from that, you can make it clear that's someone who's upset, but he's talking about the board and ENIC, and it was a lot clearer, for those who didn't see it when it come out, when he says there about initially where there's always lies, and he did hint at it being upstairs. We know what he's talking about, don't we, Martin? It's not the first time it's happened from Cuti Romero, second time to be exact. Do you agree with what he said? Has he hit the nail on the head, or do you disagree with him?
No, I agree with him. I don't think it's maybe the right timing, especially the fact that the January transfer window just opened. So maybe potential signings or potential targets will look at that and go, the club's a big mess. What he's saying is completely correct. Romero signed the new contract in the summer, so he was probably fed certain promises that, clearly haven't been delivered. So he's very frustrated. We can all see that the squad we have is just not there at the level to compete at four fronts. It just simply isn't, and it's all falling apart now. So it's a sort of shame that he has removed the comment where the original post where he put,
I've got the one. Sorry to interrupt. I've got the one now. Let me just read it out briefly. That's okay. It's got it here now. It says, at times like this, it shouldn't be other people coming out to speak, but this is more personal. It says, but they don't, as has been happening for several years now. They only show up when things are going well to tell a few lies. That's what's interesting, because that suggests the gaslighting of fans. That's what I personally totally agree with. There you go, Martin. That's the first one.
I mean, he's literally saying nothing wrong, because they are gaslighting the fans. We as fans already know that. Most of us, anyway. We can all see it. The only issue maybe that we as fans have is Romero's performances in recent weeks also haven't been the best. You can see that he's not completely focused, concentrated. That top level Romero that we all praise and are sort of proud to have in the team. But it's very interesting that a player has come out. I've never seen a player come out and criticize a board, because when a manager does it, he ultimately loses his job. But you can't sack off a player, can you? Especially mid-season. And the fact that he's your captain just, it's put them, he's pointed at the right direction, and he's certainly ruffled up some feathers there. So, I saw it, I was very happy. But then again, you look at Romero's recent performances, he hasn't been at his top of his game, so maybe he needs to look at himself as well slightly. But I'm very happy that our captain has decided to address with social media the board, which have gotten away with so much in decades.
Agree. I think they have blood on their hands, in my view. All entitled to your view. Thank you, Martin. Justin, I'll ask you now. I know how you feel about the owners, or certainly have done in the past from discussions we've had together on this podcast. But how do you feel about Romero's comments in terms of the timing, how strong he was initially? What do you think?
When this just feels like when you like your work colleagues, you like the customers who come into your store, but you absolutely hate the owner. And that's how it just feels like. I've got no problem with it at all. He can say what he needs to say about the owners. He knows that if he talks too crazy, his contract will get removed and he'll be sold in it. But someone's got to say something, because it's all died down with the ENIC out. It's died down with all of that because Levy's obviously been removed from his position, even though he's still a shareholder. But yeah, man, it's just poor. It's poor. It's not the best timing for his own personal performances, but at the end of the day, someone needs to say something what's going to at least shake something up and try and hopefully do something. But what do we really expect anyway? What's really going to happen? He said this. Frank's obviously said, what he said about it, but what's really going to happen? Like, what happened really last time? Anything other than him getting a new contract? What's actually going to happen? Is Vinay and the rest of them actually going to make some real decisions? Are they going to fund more money in and actually buy players we need? Or what's really going to happen? So that's why I'm just, Yeah, and until I see like new owners come, and then who knows what they'll do anyway. But it's just the same rubbish. It's the same promises that we're going to have some great January. It's I'm just I've been tired. I've been tired of this Tottenham regime for a long time, and I just don't see nothing changing. Cool, we've got an ex-Arsenal guy there now as our CEO, but what's really changed? Like a couple more videos. Like what's actually changed to make us as fans feel that we're more united and we feel that the club's going in the right direction, whether the manager's doing well or not. What's actually changed to make us feel like we're going in that direction of what Vinay and all of them are talking about, that we're going to be competing on four fronts? And so, yeah, that's why I'm just like, yo, Cootie, say what you need to say. Good luck if you end up staying with the team, because sooner or later the board's going to have enough. Like sooner or later they're going to have enough of it.
100%. Okay, there we go then. Thank you very
Just,
much.
just
Go on,
on
Chris.
that, very, very quickly, I think the amendment has come because, I mean, it's a very direct, potentially libelous allegation to say they're telling lies. So I think probably either his own team or Tottenham have said you can have your opinion, but you can't really make accusations like that. However, what I've seen, I think he's just doubled down really. So that bit's gone. But he did post earlier on. This may also have been deleted. I saw it on his Facebook, so I know he definitely did post it. He posted a saying in Spanish. I won't try and do the Spanish because I haven't got a clue where to start. But it's a phrase from Argentinian politics that's quite well known. But it translates to: the people will march with the leaders at the head, or with the heads of the leaders. Basically saying either the mass ranks will support the people at the top, but if you kind of betray them and let them down, they will revolt against you. So to me,
He might as well start singing Bella Ciao.
so that's just that's him doubling down for me. I think it just lifts the lid on how messy, what a terrible crisis we're in, really. And yeah,
Will they take the armband away from him to the club? Can they do that?
I think he's a terrible
upstairs and go,
captain
"Look,
anyway,
stop."
by the way. But yeah, maybe.
All right. And just a reminder before we move on, Hero Romero's previous comments, when Ange left the club, he said, "Ange, thank you for these 2 incredible seasons. You're a fantastic coach, but above all, a great person who deserves the best. Here's the interesting bit highlighted. From day one, you paved all the way despite the many obstacles that always existed and always will exist." So you've gone from that to tell a few lies, and then that Spanish phrase there, that leaders and their head.
Don't you think, Harry, that really echoes the infamous Conte rant of you can keep changing managers, but things won't ever change, believe me? Sounds the same thing to me, but it's just 3 or 4 years.
Interesting to say always will exist. That's interesting. I love always will, like they're permanently here, which is what we're hearing, which makes me think even more. It's definitely, the owners on board. We know what he's talking about. That just confirms it, things like that. But hey ho, it's been a gone. Romero's had his say, and no punishment that we know in the public domain. I'm sure there'll be that conversation going on behind the scenes. You have no doubt about that. But there is another thing that does need highlighting. I mean, it's been a big discussion. I mean, I never thought a cup.
Do you mind if I just add one last thing about Romero?
Of course not.
I think we talk a lot about how like players are over rehearsed and they only say whatever their PR departments let them say. I think it's refreshing to have someone that speaks their mind. You may not you might not agree with everything they say. You might think that get your performances on the pitch up before you start slagging off people, but it does kind of lift the veil and show us what's happening in the dressing room, and we have a better understanding of what's happening with the players and with the club and how things are happening, rather than right now we're guessing based on how they interact with fans, how they're upset about this. We have people trying to read lips and everything, and it's nice to have a player that just tells us, "This is how I feel."
Absolutely, of course.
Definitely. Can I just quickly add one more thing onto Dustin's point? Is I just believe that he's probably been waiting to write this for, maybe multiple weeks now.
I think that once you have an international and they all get interviewed by their home countries, you're gonna see lots of stuff.
Yeah.
It's true. But no, I agree with you. I think you said it in the drafts, as they would say, for just a little while. But there's still so much to get into, so I won't keep you all for too long, but I'll try and whiz through it. But I never knew, firstly, a cup could have so much of, discussion around, but B, to find a cup with, Arsenal's name and logo on it, as, people say in the chat, is a huge surprise. So, context for people that haven't seen, Thomas Frank was pictured. It was gone around, done the rounds as it does, went viral on social media, him holding an Arsenal Cup last night, the Vitality and Tottenham's defeat. This was pre-match. I saw it. I don't know about any of you at the time. I thought, right, someone's got a bit too much time on their hands. It's an AI image or someone's photoshopped something. As someone that, does digital media and content creation in college, this type of thing can be easily created within 15, 20 minutes max. It's the type of thing we have worked on, changing something that someone's holding or in their hands. It can be done. That's what I assumed it was. And then I saw different accounts post it. I thought, it's just a parody account. No, it was not the case. It was Tottenham Tears that I saw it from. And I thought, they have a couple of parody accounts. Was it that? So hell behold, it was not. So this is real because Frank commented on it after the game. Interested to get all your thoughts. I personally think it's a little bit of a stitch up from the Bournemouth staff who hold a grudge for context against Thomas Frank. You're inclined to disagree, right? But there's a bad taste that has been for some years between, and people don't know about this, but it needs sharing, Bournemouth fans and Thomas Frank. It goes back to when Bournemouth and Brentford played each other in the playoffs in the Championship, where Thomas Frank looked at his watch a few times when Brentford, I believe, were away, and he was booed by the Bournemouth fans. And every single game, no joke, the Bournemouth have come up against Brentford with Thomas Frank being the Brentford head coach. There's been taunting and chants about Thomas Frank, and that continued last night from the Cherry supporters. There's a clear bad taste and bad feeling for a long time with Thomas Frank when he played them, trying to get that game done. Does this have some kind of consideration in it? Martin, I'll kick it off with you. How do you feel about this? Of course, it doesn't look good. You look at it without any context. With context is bad enough, but it's even worse without. How do you feel about it? Holding an Arsenal Cup?
No, I just think he's a bit clumsy with it. I don't believe that he's got out there, done it on purpose, like he has said with the comments. It's just bad timing for him that everything's going against him. He's just shooting himself into the foot with the Tottenham fans all the time right now. Arsenal played there away, I think 5 days ago. So the cups were probably left in the away dressing room. He's come out there. I'm not sure how he hasn't seen it, but he obviously hasn't done it on purpose. So I think that's the absolute minimum of our problems. I just think that if Frank doesn't succeed as Tottenham manager, this will be a sort of the summary of his tenure, a sort of meme going around that, this was Frank as Tottenham's manager, and it will be summarised with this picture. But I don't think we need to look too deep into it. It was just a clumsy mistake, and it's the least of our issues.
100%. Hopefully the only cups that they see in Arsenal this season, but I very much unfortunately doubt that. Hopefully, they will not see any more. Justin, how do you feel about this one? Because it's something that will be talked about at least for a couple more days. And Thomas Frank, hit a bit of a nerve when he was asked about it after. He's like, I wasn't aware. It would have been different if I'd known. But, he says it's silly that I'm being asked about it. It's quite sad, he even said.
It's two things. First of all, like your team around you are gonna either make you strong or weak. And right now, obviously, he's got a weak team around him. Because for no one to notice it, it's like, come on, you lot. Like, this is not the time to slip up. But then let's just say we was doing well. Arsenal just got slapped by Bournemouth. We've then beat them up. You know what I'm saying? That's drinking Arsenal tears. There's so many ways you can swing that. If we go slap Arsenal up at home, people are using that meme. It's just not the right time. But as a team of people, like professionals who understand image and everything around it matters, come on. Like, just wake up. That's all it is. Just wake up. I know you lot are tired and you're focused and you're scared about your jobs and you're not really paying attention to drinking right now, but just pay attention. That's all it is. This is such a little thing, but because we're doing so poorly and he's the coach and they're the rivals, it's always going to look bad. But if we flipped it and we was on a winning spree and Arsenal were getting slapped every week, this would just be drinking Arsenal tears and no one's paying no attention to it. So yeah, it's just as a team wise, someone slipped and they just didn't pay attention. To fully know that all the spotlight's on you, that's just dreadful on that side.
It's poor, and photos going around on social media. One individual that looks like completely starstruck when looking at Thomas Frank with the cup. You'd have thought, no, you said something, Gaffer. Do you know you're holding an Arsenal cup? Is this, do you mean to, kind of thing, or you would have looked at it strangely. But I hope Thomas Frank and his coaching staff's attention to detail is a lot better on the pitch than it was in this case. Otherwise, we'll be in serious trouble. We had Ange last season. As much as I liked him at times, that wouldn't change. He'd see things knowing it was going to happen. It would be Brighton, would be Chelsea in that game. We lost 4-1, knowing the game was going to slip away, but you're just going to see it. You know what's going to happen. He's not stupid, but he decides to do nothing. And that's a lack of attention to detail at times. And it was in this case as well with Thomas Frank. But Dustin or Chris, if you got anything to add, otherwise we'll move on.
No,
I wish I downloaded that photo of the analyst that was watching him holding the cup with his bug eyes. That was so funny. And apparently a fan said that he was sitting next to the analyst in the stand, and he was scrolling his Instagram messages after 30 minutes. So, yeah.
Yeah, what does that tell you? It's not good, but that coaching stuff, I can't find it now. Typical, isn't it? It's always the way. But yeah, he looked completely shocked when looking at Thomas Frank, what the hell is going on here? But as always, in social media, you've seen it once and it never comes back up, that thing. But hey ho, been and gone for Thomas Frank. But before we go on to Aston Villa, I do want to talk about Thomas Frank's future, because I'm going to ask every single one of you your thoughts on Thomas Frank, because I just feel, again, inclined to disagree, but he is losing the fans game by game. Chris, you were there. You'll be the best person to ask and start with, being there at Brentford away. I just feel that he's losing, isn't he? Those away support, chants about him, about the team, and boos directed at him. Would you agree with that? And where do you stand also, if you want to lead on to it, on his future?
I was shocked at Brentford how the number, the kind of proportion of the away fans who were really against him. It was probably at least 50-50. Not that the other 50% were in support of him. They were just silent. But yeah. I just haven't seen that from an away support. Like when I was going last season, we tolerated an awful lot from Ange, and they didn't turn like they've turned now. So yeah, it really shocked me. And of course, you got boring Tottenham chants in the Brentford game, and last night you had sideways and backwards everywhere we go. So this has got an inevitability about it for me now. I don't really know how he's going to get them back on side. I mean, the obvious answer is just winning games, but that seems such a unlikely occurrence that we're suddenly going to go on a 5 or 6 game winning run. The cup is a huge deal. We've got a very difficult game. I think if we lose that, I almost think even if we lose in any circumstances, but if we lose playing poorly, it's going to be really toxic in that stadium. Whether he would survive a loss to Villa, I don't know. I'm almost certain that if we lost the next game at home to West Ham, that he'd definitely be gone. So yeah, he's on his last legs, unfortunately. I say unfortunately.
I was going to say, would you give him time? You're saying unfortunately there.
I would, just because I've got to the point now, I don't think it matters really who's in charge. You could have Pep Guardiola or you could have Postman Pat in charge. I'm not sure really what it changes at this club. So I think I said earlier on that why I was down after the game, I think, is because why I'm not Frank out is just I think it pushes the focus away from what we need to be focused on. It pushes what do we do? Do we just get another manager in, and then in 3 or 4 months when it's not going well, just go, well, it's this manager's fault as well? And I'm like, well, okay. When are we going to stop doing that? We have a terrible squad of very poor players. We maybe Thomas Frank isn't part of the solution. Maybe he isn't, but he's not the cause of the problems at Tottenham Hotspur. So I don't care. I'm resigned to the inevitability that he's going to very, very likely that I think he'll be sacked in the next couple of weeks. But am I Thomas Frank out? No, I'm not even sure I'm Thomas Frank in at the moment. I'm just Thomas Frank. I don't care. This club is absolutely washed at the moment. That's where
okay. Yeah, fair enough. Let's say how it is. That's what we want, honesty, on this panel. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask all of you about Thomas Frank. Then I'm going to ask you all about the owners following, of course, Captain Cuti Romero's comments. I'm going to ask you how you feel about the board and the hierarchy, and a tiny bit on Jan, then Villa. So bear with me on this one. Dustin, I'll come to you. Thomas Frank, we've spoken about it, well, literally, 3-4 days ago? And you expressed your support for now for Thomas Frank. But I did ask, if we lose to Bournemouth and Villa, does that change? And you were in the middle. How do you feel now we've lost that Bournemouth game?
I mean, it's not based on the results, right? One thing that I've always said is we need to allocate blame to the right people. So we need to blame the hierarchy and not let polarization divide and conquer us. The problem with, a lot of the discourse that I see is people go, oh, you're an Ange inner, you're a Frank inner, and then the argument, they just talk past each other and you don't get to the root problem, right? Because ultimately, it's easier for the people that are in charge to divide us, have us argue against each other, have the fans arguing with players, and you don't actually fix the problem. It's like Brexit, it's like Democrats and Republicans. You fight each other, the people that are actually responsible get off the hook. A lot of things that we blame on the manager is the fault of the hierarchy. If you think that Ange deserves season 3, the board empowered Levy to fire him. If you think Frank has not had the signings to get his system to work, the board implemented a dual director football system and is losing one of them to a relegation candidate in Serie A. If you think Frank's not the guy, Vinay pushed to hire him. If you think the players are crap, the hierarchy has not sold them and bought new ones and sold 3 of our last top scorers in a row without replacing them. And they keep, schizophrenically going from knee-jerking from one style of manager to another, resulting in years of squad rebuilding every time we change. Pochettino did well, but we didn't win anything, so let's get serial winners like Mourinho and Conte. But then we don't back them with signings. And then, the football's a bit boring, so let's get Ange, his football's exciting. But he's bad defensively, so let's get a defensively solid manager. And you keep schizophrenically going from one style to another. And then you end up with players like Perisic that Ange can't use. And you end up with people like Ndombele or Manor Solomon or Brian Hill. And all these players, they're still on the books. Sergio Reguilon was with us for how many years? And, we just kept loaning him out and forgetting that he was even on our books. And that's because we keep changing the manager. But we don't have a director of football. And we don't have a director of football that decides that the manager comes in and he will be able to use the same players. You end up having, these seasons of flux where you keep changing and chopping and changing managers and players because you don't know what your style of football is, you don't know what your identity is, and then you have a complete disconnect from the fans because the fans don't know what's going on, and they keep blaming managers because the manager is the person that's put on the pedestal and having to do interviews every week when the problem is actually above the manager's pay grade.
Fair enough. I think you covered a lot there, Dustin. Thank you very much. I struggle to disagree with any of that. Do you know what Chris and Dustin said there? I agree strongly with both of you. Thank you. I think you're spot on. Justin, Thomas Frank, how are you feeling? You Franking, or are you like I would say probably now the majority and saying, look, his time is up, his days are numbered?
Boy, see, I had to get convinced to like this guy because everyone kept telling me he's a tactical master and all of these bits and pieces. I watched so many things on YouTube about this guy to what he's going to be doing to revolutionize Tottenham and change it around. Then I listened to the teacher talk and he kept telling me he's going to be attacking to theirs to do and all of this. And then I watched him manage my team and yeah, see, I'm done anyway, but just like the rest, I've seen the recycling process so many times. I'm bored. I can dream like I'm playing FIFA and have Xavi as the manager, bankroll my team and do great signings and win the league and win everything else. But when I come to reality and look at my team, it's not going to happen. When I look at the ownership, it's not going to happen. The players we have, low quality. And I didn't even deep that we sold 3 of our top goal scorers season after season. I didn't even notice that one in Brennan Johnson going as well. So, yeah, it's a funny time. It's a funny time. I don't rate this manager. He's not shown me nothing in his career to tell me he can actually do something and change this around. His best things are what was it, 15th, 9th, or 15th and 9th, or something like that with Brentford. We rinsed Ange because he only won it in Scotland, Japan, and all these other places, but he was a winner. He was a winner. He knew about winning. This guy doesn't. and that doesn't help it as well, especially after we just won the Europa. So after winning that, I thought we was going to go somewhere and grab in a manager who's used to winning, and we can continue this process, but be a bit more defensively solid. But yeah, right now, I still see us get cut open like it's nothing. We don't create nothing. I'm just bored. I fall asleep while he's having his press conferences. I'm just bored of it. So yeah, I've been Frank out. I'm just bored, man. But then who's going to come and take the spot? Good old Vinay again. I don't want to keep sending for him, but he put his face in the public like, you're going to be the guy. You're going to be the guy. What's going to be the link between the board and the fans, the club and the fans? And he's been silent for a while. Yeah, it's a worry. It's a worry. I want Frank gone, but then who's taking back? You know, when I saw Ryan Mason get sacked, that worried me. That actually worried me because I thought, there's no way we could do the deed and bring him back and sack Frank. There's no way. But then
interim basis. Imagine
there
interim
could be.
basis to the end of the year. United do Gunnar Solskjaer.
You see Ryan Mason get sacked, and you see Harry Redknapp in the stadium, right? It's like all these things.
Hey, yeah, even that. When I saw Redknapp, would I take Redknapp back? Because he was good at getting the best out of the players. He might not have been great tactically and all of that, but he got certain players who I would have definitely said was rubbish, looking good. So I don't know, but then how old is he now? What are we really doing? So yeah, I'm just worried. I'm worried for Tottenham. And yeah, man, Frank out, but then I wasn't franking anyway. So yeah, but then how long do we give him? Do we risk not having Europe next season? Do we really risk that? Because then Van der Ven will definitely be gone. And then, yeah, Vuskovic, are we hoping that he's going to be the guy? Will he really want to stay around with this? So yeah, no, I don't know, man. I'm Frank out, innit? I'm Frank out.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you voicing how you feel there. Martin?
Yes, just on Justin's point, I don't think we're risking missing out on Europe. I think we're definitely missing out on Europe next season. What I will say is Dustin made some fantastic rational points about the board, about all the issues, but I think my stance on Thomas Frank is quite similar to Justin's. I would say with Vinay and his history at Arsenal, you know, he was the one that sort of backed Arteta. A lot of Arsenal fans wanted Arteta sacked, and Vinay sort of let him have the time. And you see Arsenal, they're doing fantastic. However, with Thomas Frank, it feels sort of like we've jumped on a train that is just never going to get you into the destination that you want to reach. I just feel like Thomas Frank hasn't embodied the sort of football that we would tolerate if we're not getting results, which is why I believe even the away fans are turning, that it's becoming so toxic because, you know, Chris's journeys away from home this season, I mean, you know, he's seen it live, how poor the performances have been. So I like Frank as a manager, as a man, as a gentleman. However, I don't believe he has those manager skills that, for example, Ange Postecoglou held. You know, you sort of feel like he doesn't inspire, he doesn't motivate, and I think that's a big issue. But I'm not claiming in any sense that he's not a tactically intelligent, because I think the job that he did at Brentford got them into the Premier League with the budget he was on and made them very stable. But I just don't see it working for him at Tottenham Hotspur, because I think that the standard there of the football, of the ambitions, is much higher. However, like Dustin pointed out, he's not got the players and the tools that he wants and the quality in the players themselves either. So I'm sort of at a crossroad. However, in the long term, I just don't see Thomas Frank working. So obviously, the biggest issue, like Dustin mentioned, is the board. We will never escape that. And until ENIC are there, we can go back to the Conte rant and it will be relevant every single day of the week. However, with the actual football itself, I just think Thomas Frank just hasn't read the room. He hasn't read what it is to be a Tottenham manager. And that is what separates him with, for example, Mauricio Pochettino. And obviously, Pochettino had players that Thomas Frank just can dream of. We can't complain squad quality. However, what we can compare is playing style and the sort of aggression and the sort of inspiration, motivation that gets you off your seat. Thomas Frank doesn't bring that. And I think that in the long term, that can be very painful. And judging just by this season, these are the easiest results right now, the easiest fixtures right now, because you look at the February fixtures and they are absolutely difficult. And I just can't see him surviving this season, let alone March. Okay, so we also need to very quickly touch on that Champions League draw that we have. I believe that Champions League draw, bar PSG, is Europa League level. We've got very easy opponents, and I think that Thomas Frank has ridden out some draws there and a very boring 1-0 win to Villarreal. If he had much more difficult fixtures there and he didn't get the results along the way, I can see him being mounted with much more pressure. So I personally just can't see it working out anymore with Frank going forward. And, a lot of people concern and say, okay, who do we replace him with? I can't name you a specific manager, but I can definitely say we need a manager who sort of inspires. And that's just not Thomas Frank.
No, fair enough.
I'm sorry to interrupt and add on one thing. I think one thing as well was that, however we feel about Ange's management, the way he did press conferences was incredible at continuing to sell the vision. So even when the football was, we literally were dying in the league and on our way down to 17th, but he managed to continue to sell a vision of like, I understand the club, I understand what the fans have been through, I understand how you feel about Wenger saying that, the Europa League winner should not have. He just took on what the fans understood, and just being so much better at communicating that, saying let them dream, is something that you can't you can't take away from. And what Frank is doing is talking us down, saying we were 17th, we're not that good, manage your expectations. And I don't think that the fans have a good reaction to that.
It's funny on perspectives, isn't it? And without turning it into an Ange thing, I couldn't disagree more with that. I thought Ange was a complete bullshitter. And if you want a manager to sit there and go, we're brilliant when we've just been thrashed again and we're going to win the league, or whatever, great.
I agree he talked a much better game than he managed, but that allowed him the runway to not get fired so that he could win the Europa League. Because if he
I agree with you is I think it is our fan base. Our fan base want a delusion that we are amazing and that we're going to be challenging in the top four.
They don't like to hear the truth. Frank's saying
absolutely, and they've turned on Thomas Frank for much of what he said. Maybe he could have phrased it better, but I think he's just being honest. Like, they went mental when he said the other week, we're a Champions League club, but we're not a Champions League team. What's controversial about that? We've been rubbish for 2.5 years, but the fans won't accept it. But they want him to come out and say, yeah, we're gonna win the Champions League. Why? Why do you want that? Because none of what Ange said was. He said so much, and 99% of it was utter nonsense. But because he said one thing that happened to become true, and it was the biggest thing he said, everybody sort of says he's like some sort of prophet. But every time, and also advocating for the fans.
But he at least spoke about winning, though. Thomas Frank said he knows he'll lose, isn't it? It's just a mentality thing, I think, as well.
One more thing on Ange. You say advocated for the fans. No manager in our history has argued with fans as often as Ange Postecoglou did.
I would agree that
he's getting abused.
But then Thomas Frank's already called us fake fans for having a disagreement with how he structures the team in it. So he's already got onto it, and he's not even been there that long.
That was about.
But I know, but even that, he should know better not to be talking about fake fans. That's just crazy. And then he said, "Say it to my face," and he literally got that the next game at home. So it's like, either way, when you're in a toxic space like Tottenham, your composure goes straight away.
But that's where you just put your own personal. I'm not saying you're wrong, because I'm putting my own personal view on what he says, and that the fake fans wasn't the greatest phraseology in the world, but the actual message of what he was saying was, don't boo the team whilst the match is taking place. And I don't have an issue with that. I think that's correct.
No, I agree. I think, Chris, what Thomas Frank said is absolutely true, and there's nothing controversial in the actual statement. The only controversial thing is that we as fans know that we're not in that position, and he doesn't need to be the one saying it, because even when we go back to Pochettino days, and at the start we weren't a Champions League team, but he never spoke about us not being a Champions League team, if that makes sense. That I think that he's sort of, what he's saying is true. It just, the way he's wording it and the way he's, speaking towards the fans, there's not that alignment.
I agree with you, but then you go
And
back
that
to
might
the
work perfectly at Brentford as well. But I'm guessing he just hasn't read the room that our fan base aren't like that. They're very fragile at what we're going to hear, especially when we've been going through rubbish. And then just off the back of winning something, to then have a season turn like this so quickly, it's just think about what you're saying. Like, that's how I look at it, especially since he's a psychologist as well. Like,
I don't disagree, but I think a massive portion of our fan base have held on to the fact that we've won something as though it was a demonstration of how good the team is. But as Martin's kind of alluded to a little bit, the actual draw in that Europa League, that doesn't represent how good the team was, because the teams we played were not brilliant teams. What represents how good this team is how they've performed over the last 2.5 years. It's not a good team. I think we need some honesty. We are not prepared for a manager to come in and give him time whilst he tries to sort out what's going on. We're not prepared to do it for Frank. We won't be prepared to do it for the next guy either.
I think the point I'll make about this is that there are different ways to go about it, and one way is to go manage expectations and say we're not that good, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And then there's the other way to go about it, which is like there's being the optimist, and sometimes that means you're bullshitting people because you're trying to G up players to play above their level. And I would say that of the coaches that we've had, we've gotten a bit more out of coaches that were optimistic about the players, and sometimes it meant bullshitting the players about you're better than you actually are, and sometimes they actually played above themselves. And we've had managers that were like, manage your expectations, and that was like Conte, Mourinho, and to an extent Frank now, which is like, manage your expectations because this club is actually a bit shit. And I feel that we've gotten more out of our players by being the optimists, and yet, even if it means sometimes that they're bullshitting them and saying, you can do this, you can achieve your dreams here, and the players stay here longer and maybe they end up doing something here.
But for a start, I don't think the players listen to any press conferences. But what Conte said in that rant was absolutely nailed on. And what we did as a fan base was not turn on the owners, we turned on Conte. I think that sums our fan base up completely. It's still true now, what Conte said.
I don't think everyone turned on Conte. I certainly didn't. I think that what he said was fantastic.
The majority did, mate.
Let's leave it there.
Yeah, let's move on.
You've all made some really good points, so I thought I'd let that for a little while. Some breaking news coming in from someone I haven't heard of him, called Annie Condola, who works for Talk Sport. He said things are not looking good for Thomas Frank at Spurs. He said he's been told he's on very thin ice this evening. He said a rapidly unfolding situation is one to keep an eye on going into tomorrow morning. He says unclear whether the cup incident has anything to do with it, but it's not looking good for the Spurs boss. The beginning of the end for another Premier League manager, he says. So interesting. Don't know if he's putting two and two together. We won't know. But there's one thing very, very quickly. I know you've got to laugh at you. This will make you laugh even more, actually, I think, because I've been sent this earlier on social media. Didn't plan to bring it up, but the guys asked me to bring it up. It's a graphic created about a pitch invasion at the weekend against Aston Villa. It's in particular what I found fascinating.
I work there, yeah. I beg any fan who's trying to do this, do not do this. Do not do this. You'll get a straight life ban. It's not worth it. Do not do
it. It's illegal for a start.
Trust me, do not do this. I work on the pitch. I'm telling you lot, it's not worth it. Do not do this.
I was just going to say, we do not endorse that kind of thing. I mean, what do you think? I was going to ask you, Chris, what you think of this that is even been suggested against Frank and Vinay as well. Was interesting. Of course, you get banned if you go on the pitch.
Fortunately, I don't actually think this is a serious thing. It's just something someone's thrown up using AI. It's not been posted by any meaningful account. I've seen it myself, so it won't happen. But we can't even coordinate our fans to wave a few flags and sing a song together, let alone a pitch invasion. So it won't happen. But actually, like you just said, it's something that certainly on any channel shouldn't be condoning. Just to reinforce the fact, entering the pitch. It's not just going to get you banned. It's against the law to do that. It's actually illegal to go on the pitch. So you're actually risking yourself getting arrested. So
don't do it, anyone.
Ridiculous thing to do. Look, if you're against Frank, that's up to you. And there's plenty of other more sensible ways to do it than trying to do a pitch invasion.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Thank you very much. I didn't want to talk about that for too long. But on to go on, Dustin.
I was laughing so much because you used that picture of him as on the cup as you were announcing news, and it almost felt like the Wally with the Brawly kind of.
yeah. They're all too young for that, mate. That's like 20 years ago almost.
Hey ho, thank you. On to Aston Villa then. Thomas Frank delivered some team news. Frank said Lucas Bergwijn is being assessed. We'll know more later with him. Same with Rodrigo Bentancur. He says Rodri has a hamstring injury, not another one. Looks like a bigger one. Unfortunately, we don't know the time frame. That we will know later. It seems serious. Mohamed Kudus is unfortunately a bigger one to his tendon in the quad. That is where we expect him back after the March international break, likely April. He said, the latest on Kulusevski, we know it is a complicated injury. If there's one person who can accelerate it, that recovery, it's Dejan Kulusevski, who's a top pro and has a top mentality. The most important thing is to recover the pain in the knee. He had an injection to help that 10 days ago. We'll know more in 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 5, if that's settled. And when it has settled, hopefully we'll be back on the grass. And from there, we'll see what is happening in a few months' time. So just to give some context, these players, all of them, apart from Lucas Bergwijn, is going to be months. And listen, someone made a joke, with Kudus when he come off saying, he won't just miss the next game, he's going to miss a few months. Well, it was meant as a joke, but that's literally what's happened. Wow. Martin, pretty damning team news from Thomas Frank. I mean, can't hold that against him, but it's not going in his favour really at the moment with these players literally not fit to play.
Definitely. I do feel very sorry for him because I will agree with Chris that Ange in this situation will definitely be throwing the excuses of, that he's missing such key players because Frank hasn't even had a single game where Solanke, James Maddison have started, Kulusevski even. So those are 3 key players in our offensive side of the field. So, he's been absolutely limited there. And now his midfield is also falling apart. The only player that struck any sort of creativity in the front line in Kudus is out apparently until April. Let's be real, we won't see him until September. It's dark days ahead for him, but and the worst part is that this is the first round of the FA Cup and we're facing Aston Villa, who are in fantastic form. I know that they just drew against Crystal Palace 0-0, but bar that Arsenal result, they're in fantastic form. So yeah, it's not looking good for him. And again, Romero's called out the ball. So the only thing the board can actually do is sort of show that Romero's statements of they're just feeding lies isn't true and actually invest in January because we need investments.
Absolutely. Thank you. Jimmy Hotspur says Spurs April is January, but damn team news either way from Thomas Frank. Aston Villa then, I'd like you all to, because of time, and we've kept you for ages, to give your thoughts under 60 seconds for the game and your score prediction. So it's going to be a challenge. I mean, there's a lot to talk about with Tottenham at the moment. Justin, I'll kick it off with you. Can I get your thoughts under 60 seconds and your score prediction at the end of it, please?
Okay, cool. Home form has been dreadful. Especially how our team's just been crippled even more. So I'm gonna say 3-1 loss. I wish it wouldn't be. I wish that we'd go through and live another day. But yeah, I just can't see this being a nice game. I'm just hoping that something changes and I'm completely wrong. But yeah, deep down, I just see it being like a 3-1 loss.
I echo the score prediction and what you say there, but hopefully being wrong. Really appreciate that though, Justin. Thank you for your honesty. Martin, thoughts and score prediction briefly?
Statistically, at home in cup games, we've actually got a really good record recently. So even dating back to last year's Carabao Cup against Liverpool, we won 1-0. However, the team news will impact that definitely. So I'm saying I'm going to be positive with this one for some reason. I'm going to say 2-1 Tottenham.
Okay, I didn't expect that. Fair, Joe. Good, full credit to you. I try and be glass half full with a manager, and often get that glass thrown back at me quite a few times. Let me tell you that. But I like being positive there. Thank you very much, Dustin. Can I get your thoughts and score prediction? Can always rely on you for being balanced.
I think the fact that we have lost Kudus, Bentancur, and Bergvall, to what looks like long-term injuries, and
Not
even
good.
if we do get signings, they're not going to come in and hit the ground running. I think we have a chance if he actually plays some of the youth team players that might have the hunger to do something different. I feel that when he's gone to players that are younger and hungrier, there's less predictability. They have a go versus the players that we have now that just seem to be stuck in patterns and playing sideways and backwards. So if he goes to youth to shore up some of the absences, I think that we might get a draw and then do something in extra time. But I think that if he goes with the same lineup with senior players, I see a shellacking ahead of us. So if he goes with youth, a draw, maybe a win. If he goes with the same first 11 or whoever's available after injuries, then I see a 2-0 loss.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. So we've got 2 defeats and a win from Martin. I did not see that coming with the injury news we had today, losing 3 players in the state we're in, and high-flying Aston Villa, I like to call them. But I love the positivity. Martin's always positive, comes in there, big smile, backs his club, and I do admire that. I wish more of our fans could be the same. Chris, well, you're the more negative side of the spectrum, let's just say. But what are your quick thoughts on score prediction?
I just loved how you framed that. Like, I love all these fans. Thanks for all those positive predictions. We'll go to Chris now. No, for the other side.
We're in it.
Yeah. Villa, we went out to them in the cup last season. Another one of my glorious away days. That was
So you've
probably
been positive already.
Yeah. Probably my lowest point of last season. I just remember it was a few days after I'd been at Liverpool when we were thrashed there. I just remember driving to the game thinking, "Oh, what's the point?" So that will probably happen on Saturday. But I think if we play youth, Villa are men. Villa have got a team of big men. I just don't see how we can. The only thing is, if Villa pick a weakened team, I don't see why they would. If Villa pick a pretty strong team, I think that'll be too good for us. I'd say Villa will win 2-0, and they will like the cartoons where they're having a fight and you get a really small person, they're just held off at arm's length and they can't reach like that. I think it will be that. I think Villa will go 2-0 up and just hold us at arm length and just go, yeah, game done. Thank you very much. So yeah, I can't see how we get past Villa. Much better than us, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much. The dogs either approve or strongly disapprove. I'll let you decide on that one. But thank you very, very much. That wraps us up, I think, for the Scarfey Spurs Talk podcast. A lot to discuss that we got through. Got through the majority of it, I would say. Apart from maybe a little bit more discussion on the owners in the January window, which we will leave for another day. We discussed a lot. I didn't think there'd be that much to discuss before a Balls kit, but Spurs always produce a surprise. Justin, thank you very much for joining me again. Where can people follow you across social media? Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been a pleasure. It's actually been good to get this off my chest about how I've been feeling about Tottenham anyway. But yeah, you can catch me on X and you can catch me on TikTok. I've not done videos recently. I've needed a bit of a rest with Tottenham. So after the January transfer, I'm going to be back. And hopefully maybe a new manager and some new players, eh?
We'll have to see. Time will tell. It's looking that way at the moment. Justin, thank you very much. Martin, thank you very much. The only one to predict a Spurs win in this game. Got to love that. Where can people follow you on social media?
Thank you. Yes, I just left my X on here. So it's Martin _Frank, FRANC. I do not associate with Thomas Frank in any way, shape, or form. And shout out Jimmy asking me what I've been drinking lately. So yeah, pleasure to be on. Lovely panel. And thank you, Harry, for the opportunity again.
No worries. Anytime. Yeah, that comment from Jimmy after you predicting a Spurs win. He said, Martin, what have you been drinking, mate? Need to get some. That's what he's had to say on YouTube. Martin, thank you very much for coming on. Dustin, appreciate you coming on and for your graphics as well. I managed to bring up a couple, and you, of course, delivering loads more and high quality graphics. So always rely on you. But thank you very much for your time so early or so late, whichever way you want to look at it, over in Singapore. So, as I always ask you, what's the plan next? Is it sleep? Is it food? To go about your day, talk us about that, and where people can follow you on social media.
The plan is to go to sleep, and yeah, Martin. One thing I have to ask: what cup are you drinking that out of? So yeah, you can find me on X using Luminoir, which is right there, and then I've got a YouTube series where I cover kind of tactical breakdowns of the games, but also cover stuff like, what could we do with automations. I'll probably be doing one soon about what the club can do and the club hierarchy, and I've talked a bit about director of football structure, longevity in the club, and probably we'll be doing a series about that soon. So the link for the series is over there.
Great stuff. Is that for Chris Callan's channel that you do that series for?
Yeah, it's just like talking tactics. Yeah.
Good stuff. Great stuff. Really appreciate it. Chris, thank you very much for coming on. Appreciate you giving your time as well. Of course, talk to people, remind people a bit about, but your refereeing career, also where people can follow you on social media.
Don't remind anyone about my referee. I tried to forget my refereeing career. Nobody else wants to know about it.
Go on.
But I still get involved with. I do have a lot of refereeing stories, but that's for another day. But yeah, I do get involved with just chatting about decisions and stuff, which is just on X at that handle just there. Mainly, it's just try to educate. So if people genuinely want to understand why decisions are made, as opposed to just rant about it's really unfair, every referee is biased against my team, which every single set of fan thinks. If anyone ever wants to actually understand what the law says or anything, then feel free to message me. I'll always have a chat. But yeah, that's it really. And then apart from that, I just pop up here and there on YouTube now and then. I think I'm with you a couple of times coming up in the next couple of weeks, Harry, so people will see me on here. Unfortunately,
sorry.
If that's a good thing.
No, I was going to say sorry about that. No, sorry being with me. Not that I'm seeing you. They don't mind you. I'm sick of my opinions, probably saying the same thing over and over. They're thinking, lose one more game, surely Harry will change his mind.
Did you give a score prediction, Harry, for the weekend?
Oh no, I thought I dodged
No,
that.
you've tried to weasel out of it, haven't you?
I did, I know, I always try to. Oh no, you caught me. What do I think will happen? I really want to say Spurs win, but I can't cope with lying to myself either. That's the difficult thing. Do you know what? I actually think we play really well. I think we play really well. I think we draw 1-1 and take it to extra time, but I think Villa will win it late when we haven't got the options off the bench, unfortunately. That will hurt even more, knowing that we played even more minutes, put more into it, and again, come away with nothing. I do worry what will happen with Thomas Frank's future. So I think Villa will win it 2-1 in additional time. So there we go, or extra time, I should say. But hopefully Martin's prediction is right. I think we can all agree on that. We all hope that he's right. But I can't get my head around how there's some Spurs fans out there, lastly, that, will be wanting us to lose this game, wanted us to lose against Bournemouth because they can push their agenda either against the manager or, against certain players. And you've all voiced your different opinions. Some of you have been frank in, some frank out, some unsure. But hopefully we can all come together and want what's best for the football club and want us to win games, regardless of our thoughts on the manager. And there are some people that I feel giraffes ready. When Tottenham ready to lose, they've got it ready. Let's jump on a bandwagon, which is a shame. But on that note, thank you very much. Big thank you to all my guests for coming on. You can follow me at Harry Scarfe too if you want to, but most importantly, follow the guests, subscribe to the channel if you're new, if you're listening on YouTube. Thank you for all the support. And if you're listening via audio podcast platform, drop us a follow and a 5-star review. You'll be hearing from me next in terms of podcast wise on Thursday. So no, already Thursday. No, ignore me. We're hearing me on Monday. Take that back after the Villa game. Weeks from quicker than I thought. We'll be reviewing that Villa game. Right now as Spurs fans, things are tough, but let's remain positive. Back the team, and a massive come on you Spurs.
Move along, just like a song.